Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Welcome to 3IP, aka the Third Intermission Podcast, the only podcast for hockey and blackness. Of course, us being hockey fans and unapologetically black, we out here celebrating ourselves and, of course, celebrating our love for the sport. This is your boy Dave signing on for the evening. And, of course, you can catch us on the socials at Toronto Third, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Blue Sky. And you can get us wherever you get your podcast from. That includes Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Google, and our friends at Podbean. Got the usual suspects in the building, aka the right hand of the king, aka the Fedora Man, aka Mr. Standard Girl, coming to you live from Edmonton, Alberta. Avry McDougal, what's good?
I'm good, Dave. I'm good. Back in the city after third intermission live. That was a blast doing that. Our live show was fun, getting the people out, having some hockey talk, having some laughs. It's stacked, market.
Did you enjoy Toronto for what it was, despite the fact that it was just cloudy? It was cloudy as all hell.
Yo, that week, I mean, it was warm, but coming into Toronto, my flight had so much turbulence. That plane was rocking for like a good minute straight coming into the city. The weather was weird that week.
It really was. And who needs a sweater in May? Like dead ass. I tell you, man, absolutely wild. Then of course we got the Hood General himself, aka the blackest man in Jane and Finch, aka dodging bullets and just living to the fullest. Troy Piper Boyd, what's good?
Not too much. How are you? Just living the dream, one taxable dollar at a time.
Actually, dodging bullets and living life to the fullest is kind of a bar. Let's be honest here. Um, How did you enjoy Third Intermission Live?
I had a blast. I thought it was a nice opportunity to get in touch with our fans. Just having fun. Um, and just trying the live atmosphere, seeing what it's like. So the next time we do it, we know how to improve on the live. But I had a blast. I thought it was fun. What about you?
I had a great time. I'm not gonna lie, your boy got a little too sappy for most of the show, which was kind of crazy, even for myself. Um, I'll be honest, I had a really great time. I was a little nervous considering the fact that it's like, hey, this is our first live show, and I did mention this at the beginning of our live taping. Like it felt like, you're at your first show, and there's like only 10 people there, and they're all here to support you and everything. And it's like kind of being like on the ground floor for that. So that's essentially what it felt like.
And one thing I liked was that there was so much support from the hockey world when it came to sharing the word, was sharing about the show was happening. Gotta thank our people who came out. Gotta thank the OG, Jordan, Mr. Sticks coming out. Gotta thank Arun for hopping up and in. Gotta thank our boy Tic Tac Tomar for coming in. Gotta thank Rain Carnegie.
Honestly, Tic Tac Tomar not fully crashing out the way we were expecting him to. Chef's kiss.
You know what? He he compartmentalized and he put his anger into a good space for the show. And huge credit
Yeah.
again to Rain Carnegie, someone who Rain wanted to actually be down there on location. Was bummed he couldn't make it, but I gotta give Rain thanks for being down to come on Zoom with us, do the show live, have a very honest and raw discussion as a man who played pro hockey, who played pro hockey and played in various teams in the CHL. So that was great stuff for to have all these people coming out, having friends, family supporting us. It was a good night.
It really was. And honestly, we didn't mince words with him. We didn't pull any punches with him either. Because half of the questions we were kind of throwing at him, he was kind of just like, damn, I wish I had been there, honestly. But I love the fact that he was actually transparent about it, and he said he's down for episode 2 live. And folks, if you're listening to this right now, yes, we are planning a second live show. yes, it's going to happen. Yes, you're going to be there. No, I am not taking no for an answer. And no, you are not saying I can't make it, because if you're not there, me now want to hear from you ever again. So
Wait, this man Dave's out here telling the audience, yo, be there or else. That's wild.
Be there or be square.
be there or shut your blood clot. That's what me I say. That's what me I
This
tell.
guy.
No, real talk though. It was a lot of fun, and folks, honestly, you really did miss a good episode. Um, honestly, come through for episode 2. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Got to give a massive shout out to, once again, I mean, Avry did cover everything off, but I will give a massive shout out to all the hockey influencers, of course, the Brandon Gona show for retweeting us and promoting us out there. Shout out to Now Magazine for helping us out. Um, Shout out to all the black podcasting blogs and websites that were trying to help us out as well. This was really cool.
Black Girl Hockey Club. Black Girl Hockey Club. Gotta give credit.
Yes, I have to give a massive shout out to them as well.
Full credit. Yeah.
Like I will give full credit to them for helping us out as well. That was really cool of them. Shout out to Stack Market. I know we didn't get to say that during the closing of the show. They were extremely helpful with us, and during sound check, thank you for not kicking me out for dropping the heat. you know. Um, okay, that kind of sounded better in my head, but anyways, and of course, thank you to our guests, Arun, Rain, Jordan, and Tic Tac Tomar. Of course, we could have had a couple panelists from the P-Dub as well, but they were just finally getting some rest after the Walter Cup final back on Monday. So, it was what it was. But, happy, happy to do it again, and hopefully, we can have a little more of an audience and a little more, say, of a female perspective for episode 2. But on to bigger and better things. Of course, we could be making appearances at, say, your next event, for your next hockey event. So keep an eye out. Third Intermission might be up in your city. As a one, Jay Uso has just, no, never mind. Let's keep going.
All right, Yeet man.
Stop this right now. Okay. Let's get to the business at hand here. First things first, we're gonna take a little bit of a deviation of what we were going to initially start with. We're actually gonna save it for last. We're actually gonna talk about the Memorial Cup right now. Time of this recording, London's up 4-1 right now. I don't really think there's really much anything to say about this, considering that London has basically just ran away with this whole thing. Now, of course, there is 15 minutes left right now by the time we're watching this, or by the time we're doing this, and it looks as if Leafs prospect Easton Callan is going to get most outstanding player and top goal scorer at this point. Do you guys really see anybody else doing anything at this point?
Unless Gavin McKenna's got some magic in his skates, no.
Because it's like, if Medicine Hat can like cause the comeback out of nowhere, that would be absolutely crazy. But you know what? Like, stranger things have happened in this tournament. Cities that have no place being there end up winning the whole damn thing. It's just like it's absolutely crazy. So anything can happen in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That's the joy of watching hockey, right? I mean, anything can happen, really. I mean, it's just like watching like a 7th or an 8th seed team win the whole thing. You're always expecting the most dominant team to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the reverse happens.
And like, that's the thing about playoff hockey too. It's like, a shit team can catch a heater, and the next thing you know, it's like you said, they could be the worst team to get into the playoffs, and they can have one of the biggest hot streaks in order to be able to win an actual championship and just stun everybody. like the Los Angeles Kings did that back in 2012, I believe.
2012, yes.
Yeah. And that was the last time the last time we had 1 through 8 seeding was 2014, I believe. So obviously that playoff bracket was just 10 times more beautiful than the one we have now, which is just absolute trash. But again, we keep saying change the playoff formatting and you'll get better matchups. But hey, Gary Bettman and his subscription for the Just for Men Hair Club needs to be paid every year. So wow, none of my jokes are hitting today.
Well, yo, what again? Like we were saying pre-show, like we were saying during the live show, like Jordan said, that was what I'll peel the curtain back a little bit, but Jordan said Dave's mind is a wild place, and once again, we're seeing that right now.
Listen, okay, leave my thought process alone. I'm just trying to be funny, all right? Don't knock the hustle right now. Okay?
This guy.
Don't knock the hustle.
Yes.
Oh my God. You guys are terrible. Anyways, now just again, just looking at this whole tournament thing, like the Memorial Cup is like basically a crapshoot for even the host team to actually win like basically a major junior hockey tournament or with a national major junior hockey tournament. And it's crazy because like there have been a number of years where like say the host team is like the worst team in the league, and then the next thing you know, it's like they end up actually winning the whole thing. I mean, Shawinigan
That's
did
never
it.
happened. What tournament you looking at? I've never seen heard that before. We're the worst
Which,
teams. I mean,
well,
worst team in the league, like, or is worst team coming into the tournament in terms of among the four
Well, I
teams.
mean, sometimes it's a mixture of both, right? Because it's like the worst team in the league could be the host team, and then
Yeah,
next thing you know, it's like they can like we've seen instances where they've actually caught fire and actually beaten good teams.
that's an exaggeration. I mean, there might have been a team who crashed out. There's been teams who crashed out the first, second round of the playoffs, but they weren't the worst team in the league, who were the whole
Oh,
city, who were the worst team.
I think, I think Dave's right. I don't quite recall, but I think Dave's right here. Where there has been instances where the whole city won't even make the playoffs, but will still get in the tournament and run the table.
You see,
It
that's what I
happens.
mean.
I know
I
That's
it.
what
mean,
I
yeah,
genuinely
I mean,
mean.
missing in their own league. No, that's never happened. I know in the early '90s, Hamilton had I know Hamilton hosted, but their team was so bad they by choice forfeited the right to be in a tournament. That was the old Hamilton Dukes. I know they were. If you're Jamaican, that sounds differently, Hamilton Dukes. But point being, that was
Well, hold on. We need to address this right now. What is?
no one will lie. No, I'm not lying. There was in the early '90s an OHL team called the Dukes of Hamilton.
Can I block it in?
Look it up. It's a real OHL team, the Dukes of Hamilton.
Why did Jamaicans got to get involved in this though? That's the question.
I'm just saying Jamaicans heard that differently. Talking about Duke,
Troy, you want to translate on this one or? About Duke. Never,
but
never mind.
you want to point out though, one thing with the Memorial Cup that is interesting is we're seeing how junior hockey is changing so much when it comes to eligibility of guys now being able to play in the NCAA, and we're seeing how the relationship is changing between the CHL and the USHL because we know last year we saw this past season here, this season here, how a few USHL teams want to jump to the CHL. So I wanted to run this one by you guys. How would you feel one day about either the Mem Cup becoming a 5-team tournament where you add the USHL champion to it, or you replace the host team with the USHL champion, so it becomes a 4-team tournament with 4 league champions.
I mean, that's partially crazy, but at the same point in time, the Memorial Cup has always had, I'd say past, like, I'd say before 2008, maybe. Um, they've never had like a host team. No, sorry, not even 2008. Let's say 90s, like 90, 91. They've never really had a host team. And then, of course, the host team made it a 14 tournament. I mean, if you're going to make it a 5-team tournament at that point, like you might as well say, hey, we're gonna throw in if we're going to throw in the USHL champion, then it's like, why not just make it an 8-team tournament altogether?
Now you go now it's too now I think it's too big. I think it makes sense. I think if you want to keep it there, so I think personally we've gone past the need to have a host team always in it. It's big
Mm-hmm.
enough where it can survive without that need to have a host bid. I'm in favor now. Again, it's only an idea that's been floated around, it's only a suggestion being floated around. But I like that idea of, hey, only champions play in the M Cup again. Because before, it actually was 1982 was when they first brought in the 4-team format. I like that. Go back to make it a champions tournament. I like that idea. What are your thoughts on that, Troy?
Adding adding that team to the Memorial Cup? No. Um, for me, the Memorial Cup is to celebrate the best team across Canada. If you want to add a U.S. team, that's what like the Olympics or international tournaments.
Well,
I think from
hold on, Troy. I'm going to stop you there for just a second because there have been a number of teams in from the United States that have actually played in, say, like in the CHL. Like for example, on the Ontario Hockey League has about 3 of them, and the WHL has at least 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
We have more than that. We have more than 2 or 3.
Yeah, you have, or sorry, you have about like 6 or 7 at this point,
There's
right?
a whole
well,
we have a
yeah,
whole U.S. division.
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, like I know that there's U.S. teams in like some of these leagues,
Hmm.
but like to bring like a whole like Olympic type squad, like an under 18 team, no, something like that, no,
Well, it
no.
wouldn't be.
I don't think that works for the format that the Memorial Cup is.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I mean, every tournament evolves and expands. I don't think when they first established Memorial Cup, over 100 years ago, they ever thought they would ever see a Spokane team win it, or would ever have teams from Seattle, Washington in the Memorial Cup. So
Yeah.
I'm open to the idea of having the USHL champion taking part in that. I think that's another evolution of junior hockey in North America, including them. And again, I would rather it be a 4-team event where everybody coming to the Memorial Cup has won their league. I would rather that than having that one team that might have crashed out in the round 2 of the playoffs being there against 3 of the champions. I want that to be here's your tournament where that definitively shows who is the best junior team at the highest level in the continent. Your USHL champ, O champ, QMJHL champ, and Dub champion. I like the idea of it's 4 champions for an ultimate title. I like that idea. I do.
I
Okay,
mean,
so if it
again,
goes that way,
you're
then
it's not wrong for you to think that, right? But I mean, again, if we're gonna do that, right? Like personally speaking, for me, like you'd have to throw in that particular situation, like why not just have like your top 2, or sorry, your champion and your finalist, right? And say like get rid of the host team and just make it an 8-team tournament then. You know what I mean?
Okay.
so you just scrap it. You don't call it the Memorial Cup anymore. It's
Exactly.
basically what you're saying. It's like a Champions League idea, right? So then you kind of give it
Essentially,
some sort of
like
you give
yeah,
it some sort
essentially
of
you do
name.
that because it's like
Uh,
you then would
okay.
practically call it like say no, you wouldn't even call it a Memorial Cup anymore. You would call it the North
No.
American Cup at that rate.
No, you call it more because your name is not changing. The name is staying the same. But I think now you're going too long. Now it's way too long if you're going beyond going to 8. Now the season now you're dragging it on way too long. Keep it at 4 or 5 teams. I maximum 5. If you want to keep the host team, okay, if you want to, but don't add the secondary teams or a finalist or a finalist. Keep that. Make it a champions event. Like that's the appeal, and always has been the appeal of the World Cup, where it's the best of the best square off to determine who's our ultimate champion. I think you start watering it down once you start adding in, okay, the OHL finalist, the W finalist, the USHL finalist, and the season's just gonna drag on. I remember at the same time, remember these are kids, and you got a draft to focus on, whatever. So you're gonna crash too much into other things in league schedules, and there's TV rights to deal with, and other content you're going up against. So keep it as a small tournament. Don't oversaturate too much. I think you're good.
So then we don't need to change anything. If we're going by that logic, then we're not changing anything at all. We're just keeping it as
I
it is.
mean, yeah, like you kind of have to go at that route at that rate. So, and also just to do a little bit of backtracking here, like while we're recording this, like I've noticed that like say over the course of the last few years, I guess say within the last 40 to 50 years, there have been we didn't have like a host team actually come in until about, and I am doing my research on this because for the first time David actually does some research while while doing an episode, or maybe the first time in a very long time. Since 1983, so it's been about 42 years, give or take.
Yes, 42.
Yes.
I'm in 1983, baby. 42.
Yeah. And before the I guess the year before that, your boys Kitchener Rangers actually won their first Memorial Cup title back in 1982. So
If you're old enough, you probably remember, if you're old enough hockey fan, coming into the Memorial Cup, teams used to be allowed. Teams could on loan get a player from different teams around the league to help them out in the Memorial Cup. Like if your team was knocked out in the playoffs, you could get a player on loan to join your roster for the Memorial Cup back in the 80s and 70s. That was a real thing.
that's absolutely crazy.
So you would see.
Crazy.
So you would see a
He's
team.
just grab a ringer from a TU.
What was that, Troy?
Grabbing a ringer from another team.
That's what it was. Yeah, you could actually go in and get from a team that already knocked out of the postseason who didn't make it. Hey, we want to get you on loan for the Memorial Cup. A ringer. And that was legal.
Wild. That's absolutely wild. I didn't even think that's a thing. Like,
No, that was. So yeah, so if you look at Hockey DB, there are some players who spent their entire junior career with one team, and then you might see they play the Memorial Cup with that one team for only 3 or 4 games because they're that team's ringer.
Fair enough. Just to go back to that original point where it's like we've seen a host team who has never made the playoffs and actually gone through to the final. I don't recall seeing anything regarding that. So
yeah, because it hasn't happened.
I mean, again, like I do feel somewhat terrible in regards to that fact, but like you know what, like it could actually happen.
I mean, it did, but like I'm saying, the Hamilton Dukes or Dukes of Hamilton forfeited the right to be in there because they were embarrassed. Before we wrap up this Memorial Cup talk, Hamilton Dukes, they were the hosts of the Memorial Cup in 1990, but they finished with a record. They were sub-5. They didn't even win 20 games. And they said straight up, it'll be embarrassing for us to host this Memorial Cup as a team with less than 20 wins. They said we back out. So we're not playing this.
And that wasn't the first time, say, a team has done that. Chicoutimi did the same thing back in like 1988 when, they didn't make it far enough in the playoffs. But they were like, okay, so who else goes in at this point? And Drummondville ended up taking their spot as the runner-up. So,
I mean, it makes sense because I would do the same. I mean, if my team horribly crashed, or if my team again was in last place in the OHL, we don't deserve to be in the Memorial Cup. You're making a mockery of the tournament at that point. Like we don't deserve to be there.
Yeah. In any event, though, like it was what it was, and there's only so much you can do in certain situations. So you can't really fault certain teams for being like, oh hey, like we don't want to do this because like X, Y, and Z. So or X, Y, and Z, excuse me. But let me not be American in this situation here. But in any event, like I said, there's only so much you can do in that situation. But like there have only been a few teams that have actually been able to win as the host nation, or sorry, as the host city, and just basically take the whole thing. And like I said, Shawinigan, no, sorry, Saginaw was the last team to do that. So hopefully, something crazy, completely crazy happens next year, where it's like, say, considering it's in Kelowna next year, who knows? Kelowna goes like what, say dead last and then next thing you know, it's like, oh hey, we're going to the Memorial Cup. It's like we actually could win the whole thing. Just get on a hot streak one day.
I'm telling you right now, they would not be going. They would not be going. They would be declining that invitation. I'm telling you that right now, Dave.
I don't know, man. I want to see it happen. Just for the plot.
You gotta be you. Ain't nobody going in there because they all know the optics of that. They all know what it will look like. The CHL I would bet you this. The CHL would tell them, do not, you're not, the CHL would probably quietly tell them, hey, we know you're hosting, but we can't have you be here with 17 wins or whatever. If they do, but no, the CHL would step in if they do.
Oh man, like I mean, come on, like make it work in that situation. Why not just have a little chaos in that?
The CHL does not want the drama of a team getting in at say 61 points, even though they're a host.
I don't know. I mean, if you don't like, I mean, it could make for compelling TV, great ratings, and next thing you know, it's like, hey, like, this is a tournament where anything can happen. So,
I don't know. I just see the CHL saying you're not coming in that bad as a again. There have been teams who've been there before who've lost in the first, second round of the playoffs, and it is what it is. At least you made your league playoffs. But if you come in and you are 21 under 500, no way you should be in there. I don't care if you're the host.
fair enough. Looks like Medicine had it technically scored, but they're putting it under review right now. So we're gonna keep an eye on this game while we're recording, folks. All right. Next, we're gonna go to the Calder Cup, and of course the minor hockey situation that is the American Hockey League and their messed up playoff format. And I'm still genuinely confused on what Wagwan in that situation. We're now finally down to 4 teams. We have Charlotte and Laval in the Eastern Conference Final. And in the Western Conference Final, we have Abbotsford, BC, and we have the Abbotsford Canucks, and we have the Texas Stars. Now, of course, Abbotsford happens to be the minor affiliate for Vancouver. Texas happens to be the minor affiliate for the Stars. Charlotte, who for some reason happens to be the minor affiliate for the Florida Panthers, which is absolutely batshit insane. And then you have the Laval Rocket, who's the minor affiliate for Montreal. And Avery, I know you're about to say something.
I was gonna say, yeah, we don't. I'll say maybe one day I'll explain why that situation is where Charlotte is the Florida affiliate, but no, we don't have the time to get into that. But I'll just say it's weird. Leave it at that. There's not enough time in this show to get into it, but it is AHL wackiness. Just leave it. I'll just say that much. The AHL is very funny league when it comes to its affiliate history.
Again, like if your minor team is in the same state as your major team, why not connect 1 and 2 and 1-on-1 and make it 2 in that situation?
Again, there's just too many things to. I mean, Dave and Troy, you probably both remember this when the Toronto Roadrunners were Edmonton's AHL team.
Yeah, we remember that.
It was weird. It was goofy considering it was weird to have Toronto, an AHL team in Toronto be Edmonton's affiliate. But again, AHL affiliation sometimes don't make sense because for whatever reason, convenience, politics, it's a weird league.
Honestly, just like I said, if you're going to do one thing, make it consistent. Don't make it stupid. That's all I'm saying. Because like Coachella Valley, um, Coachella Valley was like say a minor league team for somebody. I don't even remember.
Seattle.
Seattle. There we go. They're in California, and like the minor team is in bloody. Or sorry,
California.
yeah,
I thought
sorry. Minor teams in California, and the bloody major teams in the state of Washington.
it's not that bad. I mean, that's not that bad. That's okay. I mean, again, there's been worse. There have been more absurd affiliations in this league than Coachella Valley to Seattle, Washington.
True. Like Henderson Silver Knights is just maddening as it is.
At least they're in the same. At least they're in the same
I understand they're in the
area.
same state, but like dead ass, like how are you going to have Vegas Golden Knights, Henderson Silver Knights, and then Night Monsters?
Lake Tahoe Night Monsters, baby.
That still pisses me off to this day.
Yo, take up your complaints with Bill.
To this day.
If you go yell at Bill Foley. Go yell at Bill Foley. That's him. He likes his night teams.
I'd say something so wrong right now, but like
leaving off. I do want to say this much about that Final Four in the AHL. I mean, the Canucks organization has some level of success after a year that was just full of chaos and turmoil. Artur Shilovs has been strong in net for the Avry Canucks in the postseason. So while the parent club in Vancouver is having a mess, their AHL side is having a great year so far. So as they were in the Final Four.
Yeah. It was like that with the Marlies back in like 2017 when the Marlies had actually gone on a deep run and finally knocked off or finally ended up winning the whole damn thing in 7 games.
I remember that.
Like it was
actually that was 2019, I believe. Not 2019. Or 2017.
It was 2019. My apologies.
Yes, 2019. Yes, that was 2019 Calder Cup when the Marlies.
Actually, no, it was 2018. Sorry.
2018, yes. And that was the first time a Toronto men's pro hockey team won a championship since the Leafs in the 67.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. And like what Toronto had a really great run that year too, because like they had only lost 5 games all playoffs long, and they ended up beating the Texas Stars, which is absolutely nuts in itself.
Troy, have any thoughts on the HL Final Four, NHL postseason thoughts at all?
I'm not really paying attention to it, so I don't really have any thoughts on it. I just hope that the best team wins, really.
No, you know what? That's a fair thing to say at that point. So, it is what it is. I do remember once upon a time, like, like we had a hockey team all the way out in Newfoundland, in the ECHL calling themselves the Newfoundland Growlers. And they ended up winning like their league that year, and then they ended up folding like a couple years later. And it was just like, you really have to ask yourself what happened in that situation.
Yeah. Again, that's the thing for the pro day we can dive into on the show, the weird relationship of pro hockey in the Maritimes, which has been very strange. But that's what we can dive into. Newfoundland Growlers collapsed later on one day, and also to Newfoundland Growlers basketball club, which was a one and done thing in the CEBL. But
yeah, that was just as sad too, because it's like if operations wasn't working in that situation, like was just absolutely insane. If operations wasn't working in that situation, it's absolutely insane. So it's just like, what the hell are you doing?
it was a weird one. But Dave, we gotta get to what the people really came here for. That is the fact that
and that's Leafs free agency. Like I said, we're gonna save that one we're gonna save what we really want to talk about for dead last, if that's okay with you. Of course, there are some potential scenarios that we are looking at in this situation. One crazy idea that's being tossed around right now is retaining the core 4, and I know you have some thoughts about this, Troy. So, Troy, I want to hear this.
let Marner walk. Give Tavares a 1 year deal, like a 1 year proof it deal. John Croc is probably a sign and trade or trade him for something. You explore what you can get from Morgan Riley. And maybe you give some kids a chance. But I honestly don't think with the money that Marner is scheduled to make or what he's going to be, him or his dad is going to be asking for, um, it's not in the Leafs budget. Um, I think you got to take a look at your potential free agents and you got to try to make a serious run. You got to try to create, um, I don't want to say a new core four, but you want to get some fresh faces in there. More people that kind of fit Berube's style of play, as opposed to just sticking with what you assume works. Because after the year that now that Berube's had a full season with them, it's like this doesn't work for him, and he can see why this doesn't work for the fans. So obviously something has to change. And yeah, it started with Shanahan, but now you got to work on that roster. So once that Stanley Cup Final is complete, it's time to get down to work if you're not already working at home without
No,
getting
I
caught
fully
with him.
no, I fully agree with that. Avery, I want to hear your thoughts on what Toronto should potentially do.
At this point, I'm with Troy. I mean, you have done everything you can with this exact core four, and I do think it's time to say goodbye to Mitch Marner. I know there's been rumors that they might have a reunion with Marner again, but you've run it back with the same group in large part your core four again, again, again. You keep hitting that ceiling. So I do think you have to find a way to move on from Mitch Marner. There's been word coming out from other insiders that there's about 7 or 8 teams Marner has an interest in going to as a free agent, among them teams like Carolina, Columbus, Vegas. So I don't see how you can expect the to get out of your second round rut, bringing back the exact same piece. I mean, I have time for John Tavares again in this Leafs team. Of course, you're not going to get rid of guys like Austin Matthews, William Nylander, but you're going to have to do something else. Maybe you bring in a Sam Bennett. Maybe you figure out what else you can add. But I just don't see a Mitch Marner coming back again to Toronto. We always like, doing the exact same thing again will not help this team. But I am glad that this team is moving on from Brendan Shanahan. We know they are eliminating the role of a president. The top role is now the GM with Brad Treliving. So it looks like there's gonna be a little bit more oversight from MLSC directly when it comes to how this team goes. But I think yeah, you gotta move on from Marner, and I am glad they got to move on from Shanahan. But speaking of Brendan Shanahan, one thing I just thought was so silly was that the whole I think we mentioned it to the live show was how Shanahan didn't want any Leaf pictures, sorry, Raptor pictures being by the concourse or by the locker rooms. Now, to me, to have that level of pettiness, I didn't understand because here's the one thing: you are the president of Maple Leafs. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you have a hand involved in hockey ops, but also business ops. How is that a good business ops move to try to ignore what the Raptors have done? He was moving like he wanted to be the GM as opposed to the president. There's a lot more bigger things to handle as a president than solely how the hockey team runs in terms of optics, in terms of those kinds of things. Those feel like a GM thing. You've got more important fish to fry than images by the locker room, by areas. And doing that to the one team that's won championships in that building, again, is like, come on, dude. On top of that, remember, guys, you guys know, Scotiabank, back when, even before it was fully a Canada Center, that was
Mm-hmm.
built as a basketball only arena at first. At first, that was supposed to be only for the Raptors. And
No,
then
we
Leafs
know
came.
that. We
Yeah.
all know that.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that you done that in a building that was originally meant for only for basketball is wild to me and disrespectful.
It really is because it's like again, we knew that Maple Leaf Gardens was on the decay, and it couldn't really keep up with you know practical NHL standards. As like say each arena that was coming into the league around like say 1999 were, I guess, retrofitted or upgraded in order to be able to handle not only more seats but also say executive boxes and what have you. Like, of course, we all understand that Harold Ballard, the disgraced decaying pineapple that he is, or he was, excuse me, was solely responsible for the fact that like most teams were now making profits off of fans, like left, right, and center, and that's a whole episode in itself. Um, Ideally speaking, thanks to his nonsense and his shenanigans when it came to the almighty dollar, um, a lot of teams took that into account, and now like you see so many executive boxes and gondola boxes and like premium suite levels and like your basic platinum levels are like your like extensive level floor seating, which would be like, I guess, like your I don't even remember what the word is at this point, but you have like you have your premium settings there. And ideally speaking, it's like thanks to all of that, not only do you have regular fans being outpriced, you also have just like a soulless building at this point. What I'm trying to get across is that, ideally speaking, with the Leafs needing a new home, it was kind of a little bit of a problem that, like, say, the Raptors weren't able to pay their bills on time or pay their debts on or make their payments on time in order to be able to have that standalone building in the city. And that's unfortunately a difficult thing that the Raptors had to deal with. Now, that being said, the fact that the Raptors have had their championship moment back in 2019, and the fact that they've been a more consistent team to actually win playoff games in this city and win more than 3 rounds in 1 year, for Shanahan to go out of his way and just I guess throw his weight around and say, "Oh, hey, we don't want any pictures of the one team that actually made us look stupid, considering that this was supposed to be their building however many years ago." That's just disgraceful, especially as a president of a city that now houses like three of the big four in North America, as the third largest market in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just absolutely sad.
Yeah, and before I throw over to Troy again, and coming out that Shanahan vetoed the deal to move Mitch Marner again. You are not the GM. That is a Brad Treliving thing, or that's a thing for a GM to do. Guys like Treliving and Dubas. You're the president of the franchise. Your job is not to be sticking your hands all in the hockey ops. You have more things to handle than the hockey ops. Let your hockey people be the hockey people, and that is why. And that's why at times it can be a little bit tough when you have an ex-player as the president, because he sees himself more as a GM when you've got more things to handle than the hockey ops, Brendan Shanahan. That's why there's a GM. That's why you've got hockey only staff or hockey ops related staff with a team.
No, that's completely understandable. Troy, any thoughts before we finally move on to what we want to talk about?
What I was gonna say about in regards to like numbers and stuff. How did we go from the Muskoka Five to the Core Four? Like, what's next? The Toronto Trio, the Downtown Duo, the
Good question.
Lakeshore Lone.
Good question. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you myself. So, as it stands right now, before we move on, uh, like I said, the London Knights had basically run away with everything. They are your 2025 Memorial Cup champions, to no bomba clot surprise. Easton Cowan is looking like the most outstanding player of the tournament, although Gavin McKenna would probably have some words about that. Ryder Ritchie, of course, number 2 in scoring, a -4 all tournament long, or no, all game long. Devin Barkey, of course.
Denver Barkley.
Sorry?
Denver Barkley.
Or sorry, Denver Barkley. Thank you for correcting me on that. Also tied for top in scoring, or top. Also tied for like top player in scoring. We're gonna find out who is going to get the Ed Chenoweth Trophy. Noticing that London actually has two actual black players on the team is kind of crazy. And there's a light skin and a dark skin, so like there's no beef. There's no I guess there's no beef between the two of them at that point. But
Jeez Almighty! And shout out to Caden Lindstrom, another brother on
on the
Meth
Mexican
Tigers.
team, yeah.
Caden Lindstrom, half black, half indigenous. Love to see that.
Yo, hold up. London has three black players? That's crazy. Yo, I need to peep this roster like right now before we move on. Like, yo, this is actually a trip and a half. Hold up. One second. Sorry folks, like normally like we wouldn't be even like entertaining this, but like again, to see three brothers on the team in London, seeing a brother on a team in the in the OHL is just crazy enough as it is. And now that we see three, two happen to have been on the practice squad, I guess. It's kind of eye-opening.
Well, I mean, that's great. It goes to show again how the culture of hockey is continuing to grow, how we're getting more black kids, more kids of color playing at the highest levels. And to me, it's not a shock. I mean, I've seen, all around the CHL, you are seeing more and more black players making it to the CHL, playing Division One hockey in NCAA, and playing Division One hockey also too in the women's game as well. You're seeing a lot of women in the black women playing Division One hockey. So we're out here. If you watch junior hockey, you watch junior hockey, you watch college hockey, the black kids are out here. You know that.
That is also very true. And I mean, again, we did interview one of said black kids, say during the course of the fourth season. So obviously, it's not like we don't notice these things.
Shout out to Taos Jordan.
Yes, of course. But yes, you're melanated Memorial Cup champions right now. PJ Fagan II, born in Brampton, Ontario. Blake Montgomery from hold up, where are we at here? Blake Montgomery from Bowie, Maryland. Drafted by the Ottawa Senators in the fourth round.
Yep, he won last year.
Hold up, there's one more. I gotta figure out what his number is while we're watching this, folks. Like this is like history in the making right now. It's like to see four brothers on the ice at the same time right now is like it's one of those things where it's just like we don't want to make it say it's a culture shock, but at the same point in time, like dead ass, like it's one of those things where it's just like we're really happy about this. Oh yes, Noah Abelflan from Elliott Lake, Ontario, is also a brother. So there you go. Those are your three melanated Memorial Cup champions. Brought to you by MasterCard. All right. Okay, so now that this is officially done and we have dragged out the CHL to basically where it needs to be in this situation, let us finally talk about the one series that we have all been waiting for. And I know Avery's been jumping for joy about this since going to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in his broadcasting career, or sorry, let me rephrase that, in his journalistic career since 2000 and I believe 10. Am I right in saying that?
I've been in the game since 08, but I've been really covering the Oilers. I'll say I'll be covering hockey on site since around 09, 10. So either way,
Yeah.
My first Cup Final last year was fun, and again, covering a Stanley Cup Final is one of those things. It's a bucket list thing. It is a bucket list thing if you grew up in media in Canada or even just in the hockey world. Last year was a blast covering Oilers going to Game 7. This year they're playing again, rematch against Florida.
Yeah, it is Panthers Oilers 2.
Yes.
Panthers Oilers 2. And for anybody and everybody who's been waiting on this matchup, or say dreading this matchup, thinking that it would have been Edmonton Toronto, as most Leaf fans were definitely looking for that, and especially given the fact that the Eastern Conference Final was an absolute wash. Yeah, we're right back where we started. I think this is what the third repeat matchup in Stanley Cup history, or in the last 60 years.
It's been a minute. We don't have Cup final rematches very often. So the first one since Detroit and Pittsburgh went back to back in 08 and 09. It's a
Yeah,
rare thing.
yeah, exactly. And then like the first one in a very long time was like Edmonton and the Islanders,
Yep.
83 and 84. Before we get started, the Memorial Cup All-Star team: Easton Cowan, Denver Barkey, Sam Dickinson, and Austin Elliott from the London Knights, Tanner Molendick, and Gavin McKenna from the Medicine Hat Tigers. And the most sportsmanlike, of course, is Alex Mercier from Moncton. We're gonna find out who the top scorer is while we're diving into this series. First things first, let's give you the tale of the tape of the Stanley Cup Final. First thing, like just first thing to dive into, of course, is the history between these two teams. Of course, the Oilers have been around since 19. Well, actually, you know what, Avery, I'll let you take the history of the Oilers on this one, because like I be
As an
shooting
NHL
myself in the foot on this one.
as an NHL team since '79, established in '72 in WHA, and going into this Cup final, this is a team that finished third in the division. Had a I, I would say the early season didn't know what they really were. Had a bit of a bumpy early season, but in the postseason, easily, win or lose, one of the more entertaining teams for good or bad reasons. We saw this team go into the playoffs. Stu Skinner struggle in net. Calvin Pickard have a great series against the LA Kings coming in relief. Gets hurt early on against the Vegas Golden Knights. Skinner comes back, has a great run against Vegas and Dallas. And looking from the Edmonton side, the big thing for the Oilers has been Edmonton surviving and thriving without needing McDavid and Drysdale to do all the heavy lifting. We've seen great play in this series from guys like Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Corey Perry, before he got hurt, Zach Hyman. This is a very balanced team coming into this series against Florida, Dave and Troy.
Of course, diving into diving into things on the Florida, I guess on the Florida side. Of course, Florida had been a team since 1993 in the National Hockey League as one of the Southern expansion teams. Um, Florida made their first Cup final back in 1996 against the Colorado Avalanche, only to get steamrolled by the Avalanche in 4 straight games. Of course, we all remember that 1996 overtime thriller with Uwe Krupp in triple overtime, giving Colorado its first cup after moving from Quebec. Since then, they've had greats like Pavel Bure, Roberto Luongo for a little bit. Who else was there? John Van Beesbrook, as one of the greatest goaltenders of all time. Then, of course, with Florida now finally finding their way into, say, playoff success back in 2012, making their first return to the playoffs since '97, and then of course winning their first series not too long after. Beating good teams like Tampa Bay and Boston, of course, making that miraculous comeback against the Bruins back in 2023, only to take out the Leafs in 5 games in the conference semi, and then the conference final, just systematically destroying Carolina en route to basically by the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas, of course, destroying Florida in 5 games, and then of course the next year, Florida taking on Edmonton and essentially not only destroying the hearts of Edmonton fans but also Canadian hockey fans outside of like say your basic 7 Canadian hockey teams. winning the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history last year. And now these same two teams mix it up again. Of course, Florida had lost some firepower, losing Oliver Ekman-Larsson, uh, Anthony Stolarz, Steven Lorentz, just to name a few. But of course, with the additions of Brad Marchand at the deadline, and of course Sergei Bobrovsky now returning to proper form, not only as say the quintessential goaltender for the Florida Panthers, but just basically being their flat out MVP for most of these games. You really have to sit and wonder, like, okay, like, is there a team that can potentially stop the Florida Panthers? And of course, now most Canadian hockey fans are looking to see if Edmonton. They're looking to see if Edmonton can actually be the team that can finally be the team of destiny for Canada and bring the cup home. You have so many other variables as well, with Evander Kane finally stepping up for Edmonton, and of course Sam Bennett officially coming back. Sam Bennett officially or not even Sam Bennett, Evan Rodriguez coming back from injury and just basically manhandling Carolina as it was in the conference finals alone. You have to look at this whole the whole picture and just wonder, like, okay, even with the amount of firepower that Florida has basically lost, Florida's practically has not lost a step. And ideally speaking, you'd have to look at it like this. It's like, okay, like, is it going to be a repeat of last year, or are we going to see something completely different? Avry, Troy, let's break this down real quick. Troy, let's start with this. I'm gonna get you to go over how Edmonton got to the final, and yeah, let's start there. If he's still there.
How, how Edmonton got to the final. They beat three other teams.
Well, obviously, we know they beat three other teams. Who were the three teams they beat, and how many games each?
Oh, jeez, they beat Dallas in 6.
2005.
Dallas in 5. Uh, First round was LA, right? And then
Yes.
second round was Colorado.
Vegas.
Vegas.
Vegas. All right. Yeah. Gavin Pickard. Well, they started with Skinner, and then Pickard took over for a bit, and then they went back to Skinner. Skinner got hot. Special teams has been carrying teams on both in the East and in the West. McDavid is doing McDavid things. So is Draisaitl. A big blow for the Oilers right now is Zach Hyman is out. I've heard he's had surgery, but nobody's saying on what.
It's a wrist. Yeah, a wrist surgery.
Yeah, at the time, nobody was saying what it was. They were just saying surgery and their body. You've got pieces up and down the lineup that are contributing. Connor Brown, Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent Hopkins is on right now. Bouchard is doing well. Yeah, so then, again, it's just a matter of just playing team hockey, I guess, and buying into the concept that you're back here again, and this time you just don't want to leave empty-handed.
All right, perfect. Avry, let's go with the tail of the tape for the Florida Panthers. How did they get to the Cup final, and how many games did they take in order to get there? Who's the X factor, and who would be, say, basically like your quintessential piece for the Florida Panthers en route to returning to the Stanley Cup final for the third straight year.
Mhm. Well, for those who don't know, who have not tapped in, Florida went in the first round, knocked off Tampa Bay in 5 games. They knocked off Toronto in the second round. And then they took down Carolina in 5 games, coming in as a team that once again has been the one of the classes of the Eastern Conference, a team that at one point was down 2 games to none to Toronto, looked done, found a way to battle back, and again has been led by guys like Sasha Barkov, Aaron Ekblad. We mentioned Evan Rodriguez. This is a team that has found ways to adapt time and time and time again in the postseason, not tiring. And their team has found ways to score goals in bunches as one of the more consistent teams. Even though, yes, they're an older team, they've yet to be slowed down, which they've played a lot of hockey. All those guys on the roster played a lot of hockey, and they add in Brad Marchand, who, as we've seen before, was the least killer, has the third most playoff points against Toronto. And again, Florida went through Carolina like they weren't even there. They won game 1 and game 2 in the Eastern Final by a combined score of 10-2, by a combined score of 10-2 after then winning game 3 6-2. So Florida is a team that is coming in, yes, they're a little bit banged up, but they have enough pieces to sustain those injuries, as we've seen. Again, guys like Carter Hagee have also stepped up and been major X factors. But I am going to say that on this Florida Panthers team, the guy to watch, you're going to have to watch again, even though he's banged up, even though he's hurting, is Matt Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov. Those are the two guys you have to pay attention to on the Florida Panthers roster. And someone who I do think will be a sneaky X factor for Florida in this series is Nate Schmidt. Someone on the back end who in the past has been a big playoff dog. He's been a beast in the past for Vegas. He's someone coming into a veteran team who knows what it takes to sustain in a long postseason run. So those of you who are tapping into the show, keep an eye on Nate Schmidt on Florida's back end.
Of course. Um, Ideally speaking, these two teams basically know who each one of them are. It's like at this rate, like you can't really sit and say, "Oh, okay, this is going to be the same matchup it was like however long ago." No, like you have other variables in the situation that now Edmonton actually can take advantage of in this situation. For example, like they rarely used Evander Kane last year, and Evander Kane has come out and basically been not only the guy that, like, say, if you were to step outside of, like, say, a Connor McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl or even a Zach Hyman, now that Zach Hyman is injured, it's like Kane has stepped up. Kane has stepped up in various games. On the flip side, you also have, like you said, sorry, not Seth Jones.
I said Nate Schmidt, but you're right though.
Yeah, Nate Schmidt.
Yeah, you're right though. Seth Jones has been, they brought him in from the trade deadline. Seth Jones
Yeah,
has been someone who's been a big factor for
yeah.
Florida in the second half of the season.
Of course. And then, of course, it's like with the goaltending, it's like who do you start in order to duel Bobrovsky in this situation? Do you throw in Calvin Pickard or do you throw in Stuart Skinner?
Let's not overcomplicate it. It's Stuart Skinner. He's the number one guy. He's coming in hot. It's Stuart Skinner. He's been the guy who brung you here. I mean, yes, Calvin Pickard. I mean, again, if Stewart does struggle, you have Pickard back there now. But
Mhm.
you go with the hot goaltender who has had who leads the league and leads the postseason in shutouts. You go into game 1 with Stuart Skinner against Sergei Bobrovsky come Wednesday night.
Troy, who do you have on special teams in this situation? Edmonton or Florida?
Florida. I'm going with Florida because you still got guys like Bennett and Kachuk that can make life miserable for you in front of Skinner. Assuming they're not sitting in the box, of course. Um, and then you got a guy like Barkov who can, when he feels like playing, he can make something out of nothing. mean, as long as Edmonton doesn't do their own parade to the penalty box, I think their power play is pretty good too. But I think when it comes to overall penalty kill and power play, I think Florida's kind of got the edge here. Simply because they've got Bobrovsky, and like Bob's hard to beat when he's on his game.
With veteran presence right now, Avery, who do you go like who would be say your workhorse in this series between Corey Perry and Brad Marchand? Because for both of these guys, Brad's going into his fourth Stanley Cup while Corey's going into his sixth.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, both of these guys have actually won cups before. So it's like in this situation, like who is the guy who is going to be the veteran guy that say like the team leans on to the Stanley Cup this year between those two?
That's a great question. That is a great question. And again, these guys have had their own battles many years ago, but I am gonna give the slight edge in that series for the old guy that gets it done to Corey Perry. Perry's had 10 points in 16 games in his age 39 season. Again, it is Corey Perry is in his age 39 season doing things that guys his age do not do in a forward core in the postseason. So I will give Perry the edge, and he's also been a nuisance. He's been able to get to the front of the net, get his chances. So I'm going to give the edge to Corey Perry, someone who's been very effective in all situations when Chris Knoblauch has leaned on him.
Of course. Honestly, I would have taken Marchand in this situation, and it burns me as a Leafs fan. I've got to I'm gonna switch my answer on this one. And yes, you are 100% right. Like Corey Perry is the guy that you really want to be able to take a team like Edmonton, who has suffered from heartbreak after coming from 3-0 down last year to basically being like one win, one goal away from tying it and forcing overtime in that situation. You really have to sit and wonder, like, okay, like, can Corey Perry finally get it done? And like, obviously, the whole horror story of Corey Perry in the Stanley Cup Final is that every team he's played on, he has essentially been a loser since 2000, since his first Cup win. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory or to make fun of him about it. It's just that it's like, unfortunately, every team he has played on that has gone to the Cup Final has ended up losing. It is like essentially like a Marian Hossa story before Marian Hossa finally won one of his 3 cups with Chicago. So ideally speaking, you really have to look at this whole thing and sit and wonder, like, okay, is this actually going to happen? And you know, he doesn't have very many chances left. I don't think Edmonton has very many chances left either, considering the fact that, like, some of the talent's starting to catch up. Like, and say, next thing you know, it's like Edmonton may have lost their window to actually win a Stanley Cup, especially if Dallas, like, if a Dallas Stars team finally wakes up and just figures it out, or say if Connor Hellebuck can finally be the guy to get Winnipeg its first Stanley Cup in that situation. It's like that's something you really have to consider in this situation. That said, Troy, you have a knack for this. When it comes to coaching, who has the edge in this situation?
Hmm. Who has the edge?
Yeah, between
Um,
Chris Knoblauch and Paul Maurice.
I don't really know. I mean, like when push comes to shove, it's up to the players to execute the coach's game plan, right? I want to say probably Paul Maurice because he has the ring. He's been there before. He knows what he's doing, at least with this group of guys. So I mean, like, not there wasn't. I don't think there was too much turnover from last year's roster to this year. So I mean, like, the game plan is the same, really. Just hit everything that's not in the jersey, that's yours. crash the net, everything to the net. Edmonton's strategy is probably, to try to spread out the defense, and get in Bob's eyes a little bit and don't fall for any of the antics that Marchand and Bennett and the rest of them like to pull. Because if you fall to that trap, you're giving them that extra advantage that, and you don't really want to give them in any kind of fashion. I don't know. I think just because of the collection of players that Florida has, that Maurice probably has to add over Noble.
Okay. Avery, I feel like this might be an obvious answer for you, but who is the guy with the C that essentially just comes in and just basically destroys everything at this point? Is it Alexander Barkov or is it Connor McDavid?
Sasha Barkov is right now our greatest two-way forward in the NHL. The Selke, you may as well call the Selke a Sasha Barkov trophy at this point.
Is it Sasha Barkov or is it Alexander Barkov?
It's Sasha Barkov. It's short for his nickname, Sasha Barkov. It's his nickname.
Okay.
But Alexander Barkov. So again, Alexander Barkov is our greatest two-way player since Marchand. But I mean, again, Florida. What a wealth of riches having those two-way demons on your roster. But at the same time, again, Connor McDavid, 26 points in this postseason. Put out the lights on the Dallas Stars. Again, the ultimate game breaker when he wants to be that kind of guy. It's Connor McDavid. It is Connor McDavid. When he decides he's going to end the game, you will not stop him from doing it. The way he can get to the net, the way he can get past the defender, the way he can embarrass a goaltender, and the way he can change a game, either as a playmaker or as a scorer. Sasha Barkov isn't in that. I mean, yes, Barkov in his own way is a game breaker, but not in the way that Connor McDavid is. The edge is to Connor McDavid, easily.
That's why I said I knew what the answer was going to be in that situation, but it's like obviously you wanted to just drag it out for a hot second. So thank you for doing that. All right. Last but not least, our favorite portion of all of this. Who wins the cup? Troy, I'll start with you.
That cup's coming home. As much as I hate it for it to be Edmonton to be the one to bring the cup home to Canada, Edmonton's gonna find a way to do it. They're taking this cup home in 7.
So, how many games are we saying in this situation here?
Troy said 7.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't catch that, to tell you the truth. Like, he cut out a little bit when I was trying to like figure that out. So, my bad. Avery, what about you?
Mm-hmm. If Edmonton can keep this series in large part at 5-on-5, if that total buy-in happens again from all 4 lines, Edmonton wins this series. And don't forget, Edmonton has home ice advantage in this series. Game 1 goes down. Rogers plays on Wednesday night. They play smart. They get that total buy-in once again. Edmonton wins this cup in 6 games.
And that place will be mud come Wednesday night.
Oh gosh, whatever.
So for me, I'm gonna go with the consensus norm here. Although I have been wrong in certain playoff series, of course, we all know I was wrong during the Toronto-Florida series, as most of us were. We were hoping that, say, this would have been Toronto's year, but as it stands right now, Toronto has basically proven to us that not every pumpkin can become a chariot in this situation. It just basically becomes a rotting piece of trash come November 1st. So it is what it is. I'm gonna go Edmonton in 6, but I could also say Edmonton in 7 in this situation, and here's why. with Florida being the team that they are, like obviously they had come from a 2-0 deficit in the conference semis against a team that basically gave them a run for their money in the conference, or sorry, in the Atlantic Division final, quote unquote. And of course, Toronto had actually done their whole. If Toronto had actually done their homework in that situation, they would have been able to actually, be able to make a cup final for the first time since '67. But again, here we are in this situation. As pointed out earlier, the essential leaf killer, Brad Marchand, has just been an absolute nightmare for teams, and not only with his consistent checking, but is also his play alone has basically made teams look like child's play. It's basically like an NHL team versus a high school team at this point. And Marchand has been that X factor for the Panthers alone. Then, of course, you also have great scoring opportunities. Sorry, you have great scorers with Alexander Barkov, Aaron Ekblad. You also have Seth Jones, who has been, say, a secondary option when it comes to scoring as well. Sam Reinhart as well. You can't really overlook him. Evan Rodriguez as well. Nate Schmidt, Nico Stern, also just coming out of the woodwork and literally just being the guy that he is. And then of course you have Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk has basically been like a Marchand 2.0, and he's been nothing but an absolute pest to certain players like Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, to I don't even know who's on Tampa's roster anymore. That's how bad this is for me. So I can't even really say names on that roster alone. He's also shut down Sebastian Aho. He's also shut down Stankoven as well. Like Tkachuk has been that quintessential guy to essentially just shut down star players and make them look like it's their first time in that round, and it's bad. On the flip side, it's like, oh, sorry, and who could forget Carter Verhaeghe as well? Carter Verhaeghe has been the guy since he's been on this roster alone, and he's come up with clutch moments. He's come out of the woodwork and just basically been the one to depend on, and I guess in high pressure situations for the Florida Panthers alone. So, I mean, I could see Florida essentially taking this in 7 if Florida does find a way to drag this out. On the other hand, I do say Edmonton in 6 for a number of reasons. Three of them are Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Matthias Ekholm. The first 2 reasons alone are the reasons why are basically the first 2 reasons why Edmonton has actually made the Cup final again for the second straight year, because these 2 are just basically just a dynamic duo of scoring opportunities, breakaways, and just basically breaking hearts for not only Dallas but also Los Angeles and Vegas. Then of course you have former Leaf Kasperi Kapanen just coming out and being a tertiary option with scoring. Evander Kane stepping up as well. Matthias Janmark finally coming off of the injured list and stepping onto the ice and just being a badass in the situation. Adam Henrique, of course, coming back into the fold as well. This is his 3rd Stanley Cup. This is his 3rd Stanley Cup Finals, and hopefully he can get his first. Zach Hyman, of course, out with a wrist injury for the remainder of the Stanley Cup Finals. And we do wish him the best. Of course, he's also been a former Leaf in his own right, just coming out and basically destroying, essentially shattering just expectations with, say, 50 goals within the last 2-3 years and being just a playoff powerhouse. John Klingberg, of course, also a former Leaf, just being a defensive specialist and just being a boss at it too. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, of course, stepping up and also being the guy on the secondary line as well. And then, of course, you have Corey Perry, your veteran presence right now. Could he throw the body and be strong enough to take down a Marchand or take down a Tkachuk in that situation? Jeff Skinner, this is his first this is his first Stanley Cup Finals appearance after being in Buffalo for so long. Will we finally see him step up? So many other variables in the situation as well. But again, just with these guys alone, and of course Victor Arvidsson as well, I definitely would say Edmonton in 6, but potentially you could say Florida in 7 in the situation. So it's a bit of a toss up. I do want to see Edmonton finally take this and bring the cup home. But if Florida does go back to back, like that is going to be something that is going to be talked about for a very long time. It's the state of Florida would essentially essentially be in the Stanley Cup Final for 6 straight years and win 2/3 of those cups alone. And it would just practically make the state of Florida a hockey state at this point. So you never know what could happen in this situation. And on that note, we are going to end things off here. Like we said, game 1 starts Wednesday night at Rogers Place. Of course, the Edmonton Oilers getting home ice advantage. Of course, they've touched the Clarence Campbell Bowl, whereas the Florida Panthers did not touch the Prince of Wales Trophy. Although I could have had that mixed up. Ideally speaking, right now it is just a matter of waiting at this point. And once puck drop hits, of course, third intermission will be well represented. Of course, Avry will be at Rogers Place on Wednesday night for puck drop. We will also be keeping an eye on the Cup Final as well, as we will be making sure that we have post-game spaces as well, in case you do want to listen and hear us, trash talk Florida or trash talk Edmonton, depending on who wins and who loses. So, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun all around. But in that case, just want to say thank you very much to Troy and Avry for coming through tonight. Of course, guys, it's always a pleasure to have you here, and we will be back next week. Folks, I just want to say thank you for letting us grace the space between your head top, and of course, like I said, we will be back next week with another episode. So until next time, make sure to drink your water, mind your business, and deuces.